Before the conflict began, Iranian urban centers were defined by this, a baseline of bustling, everyday activity. That reality was shattered in the opening weeks of the war. Strikes on urban areas have caused thousands of civilian casualties, with a disproportionate number of those killed and injured being women and children. The bombardment targets densely populated residential and commercial zones, leaving behind massive piles of concrete where multi-story homes once stood. Basic civic services are being dismantled. Schools and educational facilities are taking direct hits, collapsing the infrastructure required to educate the next generation. Replacing these hospitals, desalination plants, and energy facilities will require years of work and enormous resources. Every dollar spent on reconstruction is a dollar siphoned away from the country's long-term development. This active fighting does more than disrupt the peace. It represents the systematic erasure of a functioning society's foundation. Beyond the physical destruction of the cities, a different kind of pressure is building against the civilian population. Iranians are currently caught in a double bind, a situation where an individual is trapped by two conflicting threats. In this case, they are caught between foreign military strikes from above and intense domestic repression from their own government. Authorities are using the conflict as a security pretext to implement total internet shutdowns, conduct harsh crackdowns, and systematically suppress any domestic dissent. By weaponizing the chaos of the war, the government deliberately shrinks the space required for any peaceful, democratic change inside the country. On a regional scale, the collapse of Iranian infrastructure forces millions of displaced people to flee outward toward national borders. This massive movement creates an immediate bottleneck. Neighboring states are forced to absorb and process millions of individuals arriving simultaneously, overwhelming their logistical capacities. To manage the influx, surrounding nations are constructing sprawling emergency settlements that stretch across hillsides, placing a severe strain on regional support systems. The physical movement of people is matched by the movement of weapons. Cross-border retaliatory strikes create a high risk of regional spillover, potentially dragging surrounding Gulf states directly into the fighting. These escalating hostilities derail diplomatic initiatives across the Middle East. Crucial negotiations regarding the containment of Iran's nuclear program are effectively frozen while the fighting continues. The conflict acts as a geopolitical spoiler, destabilizing the entire Gulf and blocking progress on broader security guarantees, including ceasefire frameworks for Gaza. The impact of this conflict extends well beyond the region, reaching directly into the global economy. This chart tracks global oil prices, showing an immediate spike reacting to the specific dates of attacks on Iranian oil depots and energy infrastructure. The violence also threatens major maritime shipping routes. When cargo ships have to reroute to avoid the Gulf, transit times increase, driving up costs for households and businesses worldwide. Those blocked routes also sever the global humanitarian supply chain. Millions of tons of food, pallets of vital medicine, and shelter materials are currently stuck in transit, far from the populations that need them. Because of this logistical chokehold, civilians in entirely unrelated global crises, like Sudan and Myanmar, are suffering. Their survival depends on shipments that are currently paralyzed by the war in Iran. A localized war in Iran is a direct catalyst for global inflation and secondary humanitarian starvation thousands of miles away. The compounding damage across local cities, regional borders, and global logistics systems is entirely unsustainable. Neighboring states cannot indefinitely absorb millions of refugees. The global supply chain cannot endure permanent rerouting, and the civilian population cannot survive a sustained aerial bombardment. The deliberate or reckless targeting of civilian sites, particularly schools and medical facilities, violates established international law and basic humanitarian principles. Allowing the violence to continue is a profound moral failure by the international community, and the physical and psychological damage done to millions is preventable. Diplomatic frameworks for stopping the violence already exist, based on regional experience in moving from active combat to negotiated settlements. This sequence defines the off-ramp. An immediate ceasefire opens the door for security guarantees and a phased agreement. Mediators build trust through low-risk entry points, like joint health initiatives and coordinated aid. providing concrete cooperation once shooting stops. The global dividends of halting the war are clear. It unblocks trapped aid routes, secures regional nuclear facilities, and reopens the necessary diplomatic space to negotiate a resolution in Gaza. Ending the Iran war is the only mechanism available to halt these preventable deaths, allow for legal accountability, and unfreeze the global systems that millions of people depend on for survival.